up by the Joint Committee comprised of Office of the Prime Minister, UNHCR, United Nations Regional Coordination Office, Ministry of Finance, among others. So far, $523 million that was pledged, about $350 million has so far been realized, and efforts are ongoing to realize more and the remaining pledges. This money is being used to support a comprehensive refugee response, providing water, health, food, shelter, education, and other essential needs for the refugees and host communities. The implementing agencies includes the following: United Nations High Commission for Refugees, World Food Program, UNICEF, UN Women, International Organization of Migration, and 100 other small international and local NGOs are utilizing these resources. The Ministry of Relief, Disaster Preparedness and Refugees in the Office of the Prime Minister plays a coordinating role in the response. Uganda has an international obligation to host refugees in accordance with the 1951 Geneva Convention and 1969 African Union Convention, which have been domesticated in the Refugee Act of 2006 and Refugee Regulation of 2010. Registration of the refugees and asylum seekers. In 2015, government of Uganda became the first in the world to launch its own initiative and developed Biometric Refugee Information Management System, RIMS, to register all asylum seekers and refugees in accordance with the regulations 40-50 of the Refugee Regulations 2010. I think you will all get this copy of this printout and go into those details. On arrival, individual family applications following completion of security and health screening are forwarded to Office of the Prime Minister Registration Office, which conducts a biometric registration and issues an asylum seeker certificate with a unique identification registration number. Each refugee is carrying a number. On being granted a refugee status, a refugee identity card is issued for adults, and family attestation document is issued to identify the minors. All details of the applicant are captured, including facial pictures and 2 fingerprints. Plans to enhance the government system, RIMS, to capture iris, the 10 fingerprints have been conducted, and discussion to obtain funding for the said cause have been ongoing within government and UNHCR. Food distribution. Food distribution is conducted in refugee settlement by all those registered in the respective settlements. Food is distributed monthly, and distribution ration depend on the food pipeline or food availability of the World Food Program, the United Nations Food Agency, World Food Program contracts international and national NGOs to manage the food store and distribution of food on its behalf. For example, Samaritan Pass has been implementing this in southwest of Uganda, while World Vision has been implementing this in West Nile in northern Uganda. Before the distribution takes place, Office of the Prime Minister, the Office of the Department of Refugees generates a food log list as per registered refugee and asylum seekers in a given settlement for the database server. The food log list generated by the Department of Refugee is handed over to World Food Program and the UNHCR for perusal, and thereafter, after World Food Program hands over the same to its food implementing partners that do the actual distribution of food. Food distribution to the refugees and asylum seekers. So their agencies, that's the sequence. The food log or the list of the beneficiaries from the refugee settlements and whatnot are developed by the refugee department, and they in turn hand that list to the to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees and World Food Program. The World Food Program then delegates the distribution of food to World Vision for West Nile and to Samaritan Pass for southwestern part of Uganda. Now, in conclusion, the government of Uganda is committed to a 360 degrees investigation process that will unearth the facts with the view of bringing the culprits to book and strengthening the refugee operation in the country. We are definitely offended by these acts. We feel really betrayed by those who are perpetuating, those who are doing this to most vulnerable population who have come hungry, emaciated. You see them, you should have pity. And whatever is brought for them, whoever is diverting them for their personal needs, these are criminals who are heartless. You cannot accept it. So that is briefly what my statement. I will not want to divulge more information because investigation is ongoing. And if we divulge more information, we shall jeopardize that. The criminals can go away, will escape the law, because now they will use your information for the purpose of escaping from the justice. So that's that much I can give you, but you can rest assured the police is carrying on investigation. We have initiated disciplinary action, including process suspension of 4 of our senior staff who are responsible for the operations and who should be answerable as to why such has happened. So that is a little that I can give you now, and I will come back to give you more as the progress of this investigation goes. I'll keep appraising the press so that you get the correct information and you move along with us. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Don't just go away. As is our tradition, we invite some questions on the issues you have said, or perhaps the things you haven't said. Yes, hold on.
Michael O'Hagan from AFP. Honourable, you described how Congolese refugees are arriving just now. Many of them are taken to Chiwangwali refugee settlement. The man in charge there is John Bosco Santamu. He was transferred from Nakivale to Hoima, and in a memo you wrote to your personal secretary, you said that he was, and I quote, transferred to escape justice. How can the international community take seriously your assurances that investigations are underway and that there are improvements ongoing when the man in charge of newly arrived refugees from Congo is someone you say was transferred to escape justice?
Honourable Minister, we shall be taking about 5 questions, then you answer them as you go.
Yes,
Yes, Halima?
Halima, money for Voice of America. Honourable Minister, the fact that we have the Congolese coming in a huge number, and we know that Uganda needs more funds now to help these refugees to support their savior. I know you say you're not going to give us more information about the investigation, but since this issue is dire, how long should these investigations take place? Do we have a timeline?
Yes, sir.
My name is David from Uganda Radio Network. Minister, you talked about the impact of Congolese refugees into West Nile. On the ground, we know that they are coming in the areas of Faida, Goli, Marombo, and Mur. but there's nothing in place for those refugees. They're concentrating more on Hoima, and yet you have so many coming. Actually, let's stop now. More are coming, but there's nothing. There's no government presence on the ground. It's the community just taking care of them. What are you doing to ensure that those refugees are taken care of?
Thank you. Honorable Minister, my name is Kenneth Utaga, work with Radio 1 and Radio 2. Honorable Minister, the information we have about this incident is that it's actually the development partners who discovered that something wrong was happening. And this begs the question about the seriousness at the office of the Prime Minister as far as monitoring what is happening and so forth. I want to know, what measures are you taking internally to ensure that the people who are implementing issues to do with the refugees will never do something like this again? Because it's actually another person who came out to say there is something bad that is going on, and looks like our internal mechanism were not able to identify the problem at that point. So what have you done internally to ensure that we do not have this kind of problem? And maybe just a follow-up, you mentioned the issue of you gave a status on the contributions being made from the Solidarity Summit. What have you agreed with the donors at this point when the investigations are going on? Do they continue to bring the money? Do the pledges continue to be honored, or they are holding on until the investigations are concluded and appropriate measures put in place to avoid the problem we have seen? Thank you.
The final one for the moment, Raymond.
Honorable Minister, Raymond Mujini from NBS. My question is, what's the timeline of this allegation? When you say the refugees were detected in number, when did they start? When you say that fraud has been ongoing, what years did it start according to the information you have now?
Okay. Honorable Minister, first take this.
Yeah, thank you very much. The question from the AFP journalist about Mr. Sentamo, who was transferred. We consider that transfer of Sentamo as evasion of law. I mean, evasion of misdeeds. Whoever transferred that Sentamo, together with Sentamo, they are all being suspended, because those are ways of covering up. We thought, we are considering that as a cover-up. Why a wrongdoer? Sentamo had so many problems around him, and we were still investigating him. Then here they removed him away and transferred him to Changwale, which for that we have taken action. We are taking action, and that's that much I can say, because if I speak more, I will have jeopardized it.
Just to follow up on that, you said you're taking action, but Sentamo and his boss, Apollo Kazungu, are both just now in office. They both have access to evidence. How can you be sure that any investigation undertaken will have any credibility when they're controlling the current offices?
You see, there are procedures in the public service, our Ugandan public service, whereby an officer in the public office, particularly with the public service, they are to be given 14 working days. Even when you give them notice that we want you out, you have to be suspended. Legally, you cannot remove them physically from the office until after 14 working days.
14 working days have passed since you...
No, not yet. Not yet. It's going to pass. It's going to pass on Thursday this coming week.
You issued the memo on the 30th of January.
Yes. In fact, that's the annoying thing. This is the annoying thing, because the public servants who are handling all this process, they have their own method of doing it. But they will all be investigated. Even those handling the cases frivolously will also get investigated. We shall find out their roles. If they are part of that, they will also they'll face the law. Yes, and then we have this Halima goes to America. With more refugees, definitely we shall need more support. There's no way. That's why we are really upset, because these refugees, when they come to Oka, right now, the intervention for the refugees, the money that comes from the UN system and the national agencies, only amount to about 30% of the needs of these refugees. Our government, indirectly, we put some of the challenges, we put the balance. The point is, we give these people land where they settle, we give them security where they should be protected. They go to our health centers for medical treatment. Their children go to our schools, and so forth. They benefit from our services. The services designed for a limited number of people, now it is catering for about 5 times the number of people those services are catered for. So we have all those challenges, and we are telling the international community that do more. At least if you can raise it up to 50 or 60%. Right now it's at about 30%. And we need more. Now that with more influx from Congo and so on, from South Sudan, and it's reduced a bit to about maybe 10 people a day, or I don't know. But from Congo now over 3,400, the figure I've read to you. And maybe even escalate more. We understand there are over 3 million, 3.7 million on the other side who are working their way to come into Uganda. Where shall we be? This is a big problem. We need the international support. Without that, our policy may change. We may change our policy to make sure that we don't get all this burden. It's too much for a small country like ours. Now let's go to radio network.
My apologies, but I'm not sure you answered my question. My question was, what should be the timeline for this investigation? I know you have already...
No, we have given 1 month maximum. Now it's already remaining 3 weeks. We want them to come with a report. We have given the police and the investigating authorities. Is police not working alone? We have other security agencies as well. It's a combined effort. We have given them, from the time I wrote the instructions, we've given them 1 month. So they've spent already more than a week already into the process. And we hope to get, actually we even got their preliminary report, a small preliminary report which is not pointing to much, but pointing to direction. So we shall get it done.
Yes, for confidence, it's a recognition that it's going to be a bit hard knowing that you are the head of the party in this matter. Finding it hard to actually get these suspended options out of office. 3 weeks enough?
Unfortunately, we are not operating in a jungle law. If it was a jungle law, I would have kicked them out physically, long time ago. But now there is no jungle law here. They say the books are there, the lawyers are there dressed in wig. They protect all these people. So what can I do? The next question. Let me answer the next question. Now, development partners discovered, and that OPM. No, we knew. We were following these people. The development partner actually, who are mostly involved in the field, they also know what is happening there. They brought their report, and it was matching with our report. And that's how we decided now to take joint action. Because we didn't want to disrupt the operations. We knew what is happening in Nakivale there, what is happening where, we knew, in Barara, and so on. A lot of things which are not going correctly. Which now, if I begin to divulge, because I'm getting emotional, I may say, and then it may spoil, you may quote, and then it spoil the case. I don't want to spoil the case. But we are jointly in this thing. We are jointly involved. So that the permit, the pledges, as far as we are concerned, the development partners, the countries that have pledged, they are satisfied with our steps, the steps we are taking. And they pledge they are going to continue giving support to Uganda. But of course, this was a hiccup for all of us, for them and us. When such a thing happens, definitely it gives a jolt. It was a jolt to the developing partners. But we have had a series of meetings with them, and they have seen our efforts. So I think we are still going to work with them. they know there's goodwill. We are going to perfect the information system, and this time receiving food, you have to use your biometric, your finger, because the mistake which was happening before was that they were not considering using the biometric. Although all refugees are registered, they should have been using to go and pick food, you put your finger, it's already received at the other end. So when you pick your food, you can't come back and get another one. That's what should have been the system. But somehow there was laxity. They were just giving a list, and that's how what brought about these mistakes. Of course, with a large number, only we are dealing with 400,000. Now we are 1.4 million. Of course, some crooks will find their way in. They see a lot of opportunity there for themselves. You know, when you're working, you must know there are other people who are working in the opposite direction. But we are going to remove that one. NBS, you were talking about time.
The development from the West Nile front.
Oh yes, the West Nile front. The West Nile front. Yes, the West Nile front. We have been overwhelmed with this problem. We know they are coming in large numbers, and our refugee operations have been affected a bit. But definitely I've taken note of what you have raised, and I'll get the UNHCR to really intervene and help us, and get the police and so on to move there as quickly as possible. Because I've seen in the press, there are families who are carrying luggage on their head, children walking. They were just trucking into Uganda from Zombo there, in that area. So that I think will be, thank you. That is an information, a good concern, which I will use, because I've already known there are problems there. But the concern you have raised, if it's not being attended to, we shall ensure that is. I've come with our Undersecretary, Mr. Kaima, who is in charge of refugee operations. I think you have heard, if we are not active enough, better we move faster. Now, NBS, what you are saying, time, something to do with time?
The timeline of the allegations. In what time were they happening?
This thing has been happening about a year now. About a year. You know, there have been kind of like, you know, once in a while spasms of that nature. Something wrong happened. Then again everything moved, again another one, like that. So you cannot easily identify the source. When things happen like that, you still trying to look for the source. They are quiet, there's nothing, no problem. And then again, like that. So that's why it has taken us time. But we are moving now. Yes.
Okay, did you want a follow-up question?
Follow-up question.
You instructed the IGP to begin a police investigation on 18th of December last year. As I understand it, there are two investigations. One's a police investigation, one's a OPM investigation. So have the police begun investigations? Because senior officers say they're not aware of an investigation being underway.
Okay. Would you want them to answer the press? I don't think they will deal with the press. When they are doing the investigation, they won't deal with the press.
Okay.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Your name and organization?
Yes, I'm Henry Approach from UPC. Now, we have had reports of refugees being brought to Uganda from Israel. Have they already been brought, and if so, where have they been sent? And if not, are there such plans?
Yeah, Honorable, I'm concerned that this kind of might be drag of aid. And also,
which press?
Reuters.
Reuters.
Yeah. And I also, is the investigation covering officials in the WFP and UNHCR, or is it only covering OPM officials?
Arap Moi? There's Arap Moi, not the president.
Honorable, I wanted to know from the pledges that were made to the summit, how much exactly did you get as OPM from the 300 million plus? How much did you get as OPM?
Yes, there was a hand there.
Wait a minute. How much did we get as how much did OPM get?
Did you receive any money? And if
No.
so, how much? Yes? Yeah, your hand.
Honourable Minister, my name is Ignatius. I'm a freelance journalist. Your investigation seems to be focusing only on the money that comes from the donor community. but there is information that also, for the time refugees enter this country, in order to get asylum, they have to pay a lot of bribes to grant asylum, especially urban refugees who come to Old Kampala police station. Some have to part with $100 or more than $200 in order to get asylum certificate. And also, the poorest refugee has to pay about 100,000 shillings to get a note just from the police at Old Kampala station. The Prime Minister to get an asylum certificate. Has this also come to attention what I feel about it? Thank you.
Thank you. We'll come here, then I conclude with Lukwago.
I'm going to Musingu's branch and I work with Uganda regulator. The storm is much more government than these international agencies that also dealing with refugees. First, give us an explanation of how money flows. When it comes from the donors, who keeps that money? How is it channeled to the purchase of food? And finally, to the destination where refugees are. Second, in the registration of refugees, you seem to say that government don't replace the coordinating board. When refugees are being entered in that biometric system, of course not in the Prime Minister's office, it has to be at the entry point where refugees are. What role does government play there in those areas, as well as what role does the international agencies play?
Finally, Lukwago.
Thank you. Honorable Minister, just a follow-up. Looking at the numbers that continue to come from the DRC and also the South Sudan situation, it's all about.
Yes, Lukwago, can you repeat your question?
What I'm saying, Honorable Minister, looking at the numbers that continue to come from the DRC and then the numbers that continue to come from South Sudan, they all have one thing in common, and that is conflict. I'm thinking if we had peace in these countries, we wouldn't even be discussing the issue of refugees here now. But we seem to be paying much attention to taking care of refugees than having those issues addressed. Why is the world, all the regional governments in the Great Lakes region, not paying attention to dealing with the main causes of these problems? For instance, the South Sudan conflict has dragged on for some time, and we know what has been happening. Peace deals, and people seem not to be serious on dealing with the situation in terms of bringing normalcy and ensuring that the war ends. And then we have the DRC situation. Why don't we see an effort more vigorous than what we are seeing with managing of the refugees to deal with the conflict situation? And then maybe the other issue is about the handling of the money. Would you rather that a special account maybe be set up where all the monies should be taken, and then we know people who are appointed, people who are set aside, maybe it can be a committee of donors and government officials to manage the resources that they come in from the summit? Because I'm thinking if we have had this problem, we could still have the same problem, or the people who are stealing could actually perfect their game. So why don't we focus on how the resources are moving, like the way my colleague here asked? Then maybe lastly, we have also seen some refugees from other countries being followed up here and attacked. For instance, we have had stories about Rwandans who are refugees here being followed across the border and attacked by those who are after them, especially those who are looking out for them because of political issues. How have we addressed this problem? Have we been able to address it? Because at one point there were diplomatic discussions going on to deal with that issue. Thank you.
Yeah. Because we had a handful.
Mouthful.
Mouthful. Yeah, let me start with the UBC, Israel refugees. We don't have any agreement as government with the government of Israel over refugees. We know they have over 30,000 refugees whom they want to expel, most of them Africans. That one we hear it in the press. We were informed, not formally. We got information that Rwanda seems to have had an agreement with them, and these refugees are being brought to Rwanda. But when they reach Rwanda, I'm told, because our immigration department here seems to be capturing some people at the border point, or even some crossing through undesignated border positions into Uganda who are alleged to have been coming from Israel and trying to find their way northwards. Now, those kind of information is there, not official. And I think the immigration department and police could be better placed, because for us, we don't have any agreement whatsoever. And none of those former Israeli refugees there in Israel have reported to us and wanted to register with us as refugees. None of them. And neither do we have any agreement. If they came here, it would be an illegal entry, as far as we are concerned. They are not our refugees, they are some other people's refugees, and let them not send them here. Because we have enough refugees already on our own, our people here. So now Reuters investigation only OPM. No, these investigations not only officers of the OPM. We are investigating all, including the international community, World Food Program, all those agencies distributing food, whether there was connivance, together with even our staff who are in the front line, whom we decided that they go away and leave the space for investigation. So all of them are going under scrutiny. So that is that. Then how much money?
I also asked whether you're concerned that the scandal will lead to a dry up of aid, which obviously will produce desperation. Are you concerned?
No.
Are you concerned that the scandal will cut off aid?
Yes, of course. We are concerned because these people on our own, we cannot handle them. We cannot handle all this influx. Now, on the other side of Congo, there are 3.7 waiting to cross into Uganda. So far, they are coming in at a rate of 3,500, nearly 3,400 every day. Is Uganda having capacity really to handle those kind of numbers? No, we don't. And we need partnership with the world to handle those conflicts. It's a United Nations problem. Actually, it's a United Nations problem. I raised it in Geneva at the UN that why does the United Nations not address the causes of this refugee influx? It's better would be a permanent solution. This issue of saying sovereignty, we are sovereign state. Sovereign state, you are butchering your citizens, and you say sovereign. And we are keeping quiet, we just respect your excellencies who are butchering. They are citizens. That is not fair. I've raised the matter up frankly there in the UN, and there's been no answer straight, and they say it's diplomatic. What is diplomatic? To me, it's a problem. It's a problem. So anyway, let's go back how much of solidarity money OPM has got. First of all, the solidarity money at the moment, as far as we know, is going direct from those countries to the United Nations system. The money we about $523 million were pledged. And of that money, over 300 million, I think, has now been given to the United Nations by those countries, not to Uganda government, to those countries, by those countries, to the NGOs, organizations that are working in the refugee settlements, giving them services like water and sanitation, and so forth, health, and so on. So we are not handling money directly. Though we fundraise, we are not handling. We as government open an account, Ministry of Finance open an account, in which I think the account has not been operational, but about $1.5 million was deposited maybe by some the African countries that pledged. But the money, nobody is operating it and it's lying there. It's not much, because most of the money is directly being channeled to the UN system that manages refugees. To our complaint, because I was complaining, when we were fundraising this money, I had budgeted for tarmacking of a number of roads in the refugee areas, where the roads are in a bad state. They're Maram Road, and when the rain is not passable, the trucks are there blocking. We wanted that money to be used to build schools in those districts where the refugees are, to expand the capacity, because the refugees' children now are also going to our schools. And you find a classroom of 50 children, today you get 200 children. In one school there are 230-something children in a class. And the class is not enough, so they go under a tree to learn from under a tree. So what kind of education is it? So we thought that money would come to government, we budget and use it directly for those. But now I think the countries opted, there was lobby, strong lobby from their NGOs who are working here, strong lobby that they use the money directly. And we have no objection. Okay, let them use the money. We shall find other options to deal with some of these issues. So that is the situation. Now we are talking about we are only investigating UN money. No, we are investigating all monies. All monies. Unfortunately, the Refugee Department doesn't have a big budget in the ministry, in the office of the Prime Minister. So most of their operational money and so on has been coming from the United Nations. That's why the bulk of the money is being investigated from there. Of course, along the way, even our small one, they could have misplaced it or misused it. That one also, we are going to look at them all.
Minister, my question was about the issue that refugees have to pay at the police station, especially
No, I'm going to come there. That issue of bribery. Yeah. Now, you are talking about that bribery, and those are all under investigations. In fact, one of the issues that were raised were bribery in order to be registered as a refugee. There are people here. Do you know that we even have refugees from Pakistan, from Iraq, from all those places? Pakistan, you find them selling cars here. They are refugees. How did they become a refugee? These are things that, again, is in my docket. We are trying to investigate. There are some who say they are Ahmadiyya. Ahmadiyya, they say they are being persecuted in Pakistan. They are all Muslims. Some Muslims are better than the others, and the others are slaughtering the others. But then how many countries have they crossed if they are refugees up to here? The refugee is somebody who runs for their life, and the nearest country they reach is where they seek asylum. But these people came by air up to Uganda. And they're businessmen. Now you tell me, how are we going to do it? We are going to review all that. In fact, at the moment, we have a draft policy on refugees which are going before cabinet. We are going to review all this to see who really qualifies. Because there must be really needy people who should be refugees, but not anybody like that. So those corruption, we are going to talk about it as well. Conflict in Congo, why not address United Nations? I brought it their concern, we can still bring it to them again. Fortunately, our President, our Excellency General Museveni, has been trying to make peace, trying to create peace in these countries, trying to create peace. Like at the moment right now, there's another fresh negotiation of peace talks with South Sudan and Ethiopia, with the hope that this time they listen. But we understand the OU are becoming impatient, and they are going to take action against the leaders who will not agree now to another agreement which they are going to develop. This is what I'm getting. So there must be punitive actions against some of these leaders who are creating refugees because of their greed and so forth. Attack on refugees by their country. Yeah, in Uganda here we have had those unfortunate cases, incidences when refugees are being abducted and so on. I'm sure you are fully aware. You are also covering cases which are in court there, where some officers, police officers, who have been bribed by those countries to smuggle or abduct their citizens whom they consider as a risk, security risk in their country, abduct them and take them. But these are refugees already here. So abducting them, taking them is illegal. So the cases are there in court. That one there I don't need to emphasize on. But, I think the government is also keenly seeing to it that such abduction is stopped immediately. That's a different game, ball game, which is not under but our concern is the security of the refugees. I think that is about it. So can you now spare me because I'm running out of...
Thank you.
Do you still have more?
May I request you to authorize
yes.
the Undersecretary to give the abridged version of the Ugandan for the audience?
Yes, Mr. Kaima.
Can
you come?
You can leave. Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Kaima?
Yeah. Mr. Kaima, you spend time with this book. Thank you.
There are copies of the minister's statement which are there. You can pick so that you can follow the issues.
NTV, turning on your world.
Time